Hello. So this is going to be another video in our series, How Do You Make Change for Real at Institutions? So the last video that I talked about, it was, what do you actually do to get change to happen? And it sounds simplistic, but it does work. You have to get people together in the room. You have to, the people that are going to be affected, talk about things, then actually do something. And that is the part that we don't do enough of. Now, that sounds super simplistic, and I'm not going to say that that's all there is to it, because it isn't all there is to it. So one of the things that I want to talk about today is, what do you do when you're trying to come up with that change that you want to make and you're getting resistance? The issue, and this is where the psychology is really interesting, is that people rarely will just come out and say, look, this is the piece of it that I am bothered by. And it can be a whole host of reasons. But a lot of times it comes down to people are just really busy. They've got a lot of stuff that they're doing, and they know that change is going to equal work. And it's not that they're opposed to the outcomes, it's the getting there that they're struggling with. So there's a technique that I have used, and I've done this over and over and over again and seen how it totally works. And it's the idea to reduce barriers, create the tools that make it easier for people to change. So here's an example. When we were first doing our developmental math reform back at my college years ago, one of the things that we were changing was to new books. At that time, we hadn't been really using online homework very consistently, so we were going to a new online homework system. We were going to MyMathLab, and people were nervous about all kinds of things with that. They're like, I'm going to have to write new tests and new homework, and this is going to be so, just the overwhelming amount of work, it just seemed like was going to be involved. So one of the things we did was we made course shells. And nowadays, I mean, we did that, but you can also, publishing companies will do this for you. But what we did was we created a shell where all the homeworks, the quizzes, everything was ready to go. We created a syllabus template to make that easier. There were all kinds of things that we made. So the idea was to reduce the amount of friction and to allow teachers to focus on what we really wanted to have happen, which was change in the classroom. And we wanted to not be so rushed, and we wanted to have a better experience with students. And if they're all worried and consumed by, making new tests, and they did make new tests, but that was like one of the very few things, because we didn't have departmental tests. We had a departmental final, but not tests. But that's minor in comparison to all the other things. I've done this with several initiatives. Right now, when I'm working with the schools in Illinois, all the high schools are required to implement transitional math. All the community colleges are required to accept that placement. That's overwhelming when it comes to, you have to have a memo of understanding. There's paperwork that has to be filled out. So what we did was we created templates to make it easier for people. And it's the same thing I do with my students with projects. I create a template. And the thing that I'm a big believer in is, you don't always have to require the template. Give people choice, but most people will choose to use it to get them started, because it gets them over that initial inertia and that, like, just looking at a blank screen in Word and like, now what do I do? It helps them get going, helps them get movement, and then you can make changes as you need to as you get going. So the takeaway that I want you to have from this is, if you're trying to make a change in, say, your classroom with your students, or your administrator with your faculty, is there anything that you could do to reduce some friction by making some tools that would make it a little bit easier to implement the change? Here's the other side benefit that comes with this. You're going to have greater fidelity of implementation, because people aren't being expected to pick your brain and try to remember everything that you wanted to have happen in this implementation. If you make good tools and templates, those ideas, those values, the changes you want to make, the philosophy will be embedded throughout all of those tools. So people will have a continual reminder of, what is this change supposed to look like? What's the outcome supposed to be? And so, when they get busy with other things, they'll have that to come look at, which will help with fidelity of implementation. So I hope that helps you a little bit. We'll have more tips on how do you actually make change for real in the near future. Have a wonderful day.